Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening on the presentation, OSHA Nuts and Bolts, handling OSHA audits and litigating citations. My name is John Ho. I'm a partner at Cozen O'Connor, and I co-chair Cozen's OSHA workplace safety practice. I won't bore everyone with my full bio except to say that prior to coming into private practice, I spent a number of years prosecuting these OSHA cases with the United States Department of Labor Office of the Solicitor as a trial attorney. So I'm trying to bring some of that experience and some of that perspective into the presentation today. So without further ado, let's jump into this. I think a first starting point in discussing OSHA is to talk about the act itself. So the Occupational Safety and Health Act of 1970 is OSHA statute, of course. It covers most private sector employers. One thing to bear in mind when you're engaged in OSHA practice is that there are approximately 22 states or U.S. territories that have OSHA approved state programs, or they call them OSHA state plans. And what this means is if you are in one of those states, California is one of those notable states that has its own program called Cal OSHA. Each of these states are certified by OSHA and approved to run their own OSHA state plans, and they have to be as minimally as protective as the federal standards. But often, as Cal OSHA does in many areas, it exceeds the federal requirements. So if you are practicing in those states, particularly Cal OSHA, it's always important to remember and to check on those individual state plans to see if they have requirements above and beyond federal OSHA. Procedure-wise, I found, and I can't say I've practiced in all of those state territories, but they are very similar to OSHA. So there is a lot of overlap, but again, Cal OSHA is one where even the procedures of issuing citations is somewhat different from the federal. So again, just bear that in mind. Make sure that when you are involved in these audits, you are looking at those state plans themselves. It does exclude, there are some limited exclusions from OSHA, such as folks that are self-employed, immediate family members of farm workers, and workplace hazards regulated by another federal agency, for example, Mine Safety and Health Administration, MSHA, for example. So if it's a safety issue within a mine, an agency like MSHA could have jurisdiction, in which case OSHA would not apply. There's also memorandums of agreement between agencies like the Federal Aviation Administration on when they have jurisdiction about safety issues related to aviation safety. So just be aware of some jurisdictional issues as well if one of your clients gets cited and it might implicate another agency's jurisdiction. It does happen, but it's not that common. In terms of understanding how the department is set up with OSHA, I think that's important to understand where the audits are coming from and the direction on which they move up in terms of supervisory review. So there are OSHA area offices and across the country, and at the sort of ground floor level, you have COSHOs. That's an acronym for Compliance, Safety, and Health Officer, and I'll use that the parlance and safety COSHO moving forward. So the COSHO is the investigator who's going to knock on the business's door and say, hey, I'm here to do a safety or health inspection, and go through that process, which we're going to talk about in more detail in a few minutes. From there, OSHA has assistant area directors, and usually, depending on the size of the office, there's one for safety and there's one for health. Safety is the traditional, if they have a fall protection issue, a machine guarding issue, a lockout tagout issue, the assistant area director for safety is going to oversee those kinds of investigations. And on the other side, the assistant area director for health is going to deal more with hazard exposures, permissible exposure levels, asbestos, for instance, those kind of related issues. Both of those assistant area directors report into an area director, who then reports into a regional administrator who has jurisdiction over a number of particular region, in the country. So again, for purposes of handling the audit, you're most likely going to be dealing certainly with the COSHO. When you head into the informal conference stage, you may be dealing with the assistant area director or the area director. And as we talk about those topics, we will mention who the likely players at OSHA that you're dealing with. But in terms of having an issue that you need to escalate up, if you want to speak with the COSHO supervisor, that is generally the hierarchy at the field level at OSHA.